So we're moving on now, and I'm delighted to welcome back to Galway Derek Stewart. Many of you have met Derek before, and when we asked Derek to describe himself, he sent through these words: born far too many years ago, always on the go, interested and curious, mainly these days about health research, following cancer and a mini stroke. So again, I'm delighted to welcome Derek and hand over to him here.
Thanks very much. And there I am. I put this in because as a child I was tongue-tied about this time. They went in for an operation. The mic's on. Oh, mic down. I think I'm sure to be on this one. Right. So when my parents took me back to the hospital, the doctors listened to me, and I never shut up from the moment I went in the door. The doctor said to my parents, "Do you regret us operating on one?" So it was a kind of early view of and cynicism of the medical profession. So my next slide. So I first got involved after my cancer. It's strange to stand here today and mark 30 years. If you had told me then I'd get 1 year, 5 years, I'd have gone, thank you very much. The fact that I'm here 30 years is surprising. But it's the experience of a mini stroke on my way to Galway that I want to base my talk around. I was trying to remember, I was talking to the driver about this place, but I couldn't remember it. I could remember it, but I couldn't say it. I could see it, but no words would come out. The strange thing was, oops, I've gone back one. The strange thing was, I could pick my phone up and type out misunderstood heron, but I couldn't speak it. But even when I got out my phone, I couldn't say the words. I could see them, so I was confused, disorientated. I became a patient in Ireland because I visited Newcastle Road to the University Hospital, and they diagnosed a transient ischemic attack. And it's that moment when you realise they speak a completely different language to us. And they sometimes briefly call that TIA. But if we do a study and look at a study and it says we're looking at transient ischemic attacks, if you don't know what that is, you're not going to express an interest. And maybe they want the public's perspectives on that. So our role. But the other thing that struck me as I was thinking about this is that when we get involved with research, we wonder, what do they want to hear from us from? These are highly intelligent people. They don't need us at the table. And what happens if I speak up and speak out, especially if my clinicians are around the same table? And I realised that's a bit like the mini stroke. But you realise that actually we've got our fingers on the pulse. We can find out things that they can't. And on those, on the issues that matter to the public, on the questions that interest us, not the questions that interest the researchers, but what are our questions, where are they being answered? On the points that might concern research participants, on the troubles they might find in recruiting people. And if you think just for a second on that, studies in England on diabetes, and what they wanted to do was talk to patients in secondary care. It was about £5 million worth of research. The patient said, well, actually it's ages before we go to secondary care. We're talking to our doctors. That's where you need to speak to us. Those trials would have failed to recruit to time or target. And patients said, stop, you've got to do these now. Primary care, with phlebotomists and in primary care more than in secondary care. They changed them and they did recruit. But that would have been millions of pounds wasted. But also, we can put our fingers on the important aspects of findings. Because what we don't want, well, I want good research, but I don't want it left on a shelf. I want it applied so that it improves services and therefore makes my health better. Well, not me, but us. So, first and foremost, and as Cameron's just said it, we're not there to know everything about what they do. I'm not one of them. That's why they're at the table, right? They don't need me to do their job for them. I'm not trying to be a lab scientist. I'm not trying to sit on their shoulder and say, oh, you don't want to titrate that with that. I want to talk about things that are meaningful to patients. But what I can do, and what I do become, is I learn more about what they do, why they do it, to understand why gathering evidence is important. I learn critical analysis skills. Newspaper report, media report the other day, breakthrough in our disease. Open the actual article, it's still in a petri dish. Fine, it's not petri, I'm glad, right? But it's going to take 10 or 15 years for it to make a difference. Our critical analysis skills. I think I develop better questions with public involvement. And I think I become a more informed patient as a result. So I want to talk for a little bit about, which was the topic of the conversation, but I needed to set the context, of the Health Research Board Trials Methodology Research Network. Now, for some of you might go, I'm happy to just work with an individual researcher. We change a light bulb, and it's brilliant, because the light shines, and that researcher starts to think differently. But ultimately, what would happen if we could change how the lighting was done in the room? How about we say to them, actually, you know what? If we open the doors, we bring even more light. So what I want to encourage you to do is get involved in more than one research study. Go to the darker sides, the research networks, data, because that's where we change it for everybody. This group do the research into the methods and how they plan and do. So if we change our method, we don't just change one light bulb, we change lots of light bulbs. So it's the encouragement to think about, and it's just called sometimes research on research. Comte Bean, the writer, says that as a wee boy, he'd go from Enniscorthy up to Wexford. And he said Wexford was a place of wonder. He said it was an exotic place. It had a sense of elsewhere. And when I read that phrase, I suddenly realized that's what I feel like when I deal with methodologies. Because I often say, excuse me, can we stop for a minute? My head hurts. Could we just go back a bit? Could you explain that? Because if I don't understand it, how can I help others? But then I realized that that sense of elsewhere isn't just for me going to talk to them. It's for them coming to talk to us. They don't meet patients in the public. They've got no contact. So the idea of, do I talk to a self-help group, a support group? Is there a difference between those? So talking to us feels like them a sense of elsewhere. I'll come back to Colm later on. So I got involved with the priority studies. Those were studies looking at recruitment and retention studies. And what was great was they said, we don't know the questions we should be researching. I went, what do you mean you don't know the questions? Surely that's what you do. No, we're methodologists. We apply methods to get evidence on this. But we don't know. And suddenly the penny dropped. That is brilliant, because this is a level playing field. They don't know, and I don't know. So we can talk together. And the difference between a clinical researcher, because, thank you, clinical research often thinks that this new drug is going to work. So they've got a kind of bias towards it. Whereas methodologists are going, we don't know, we haven't a clue. So you can join with them, get involved in a far better way. If you don't know about the START programme, and I've only just chosen 3 things. START programme is the opportunity for schools in Ireland. I keep knocking on doors in England to do this. I've failed so far. But in Ireland, young people are asked to become researchers. And they ask questions like, does reading a book at bedtime help you sleep? Does having a can of Coke help you do your homework better? You know, real questions to real young people. And then they come together for a celebration. And then the last one, because Ayla Quinn's up there, so I'll embarrass her. Ayla's doing the People's Review. She's doing a PhD. She went out, so to do a PhD you have to see, what's the research question? I don't know. Because what I want to do is ask the people what they want my question to be. So we went out and talked to hundreds of people, and they've come back, and basically it's a way of understanding what health reviews are about. Because if we listen to one study, read one study, it's great, it provides evidence. But what's even better is if you can compare that with a whole variety of other studies. Because it's that comparison, that analysis that actually provides an answer. So those are just 3 of the things that I'm involved with. So we already know about involvement in methodological research from the work in the Priority 3 study and Nikita Burke. Oops, good job, she's away in Spain at the moment. And she identified various things. So if you're getting involved in this sort of work, have a look at this. But it's about mutual learning and respect, relationships, thing that Cameron spoke about so meaningfully, about having those different perspectives, but also having both a safe space to talk about things. I'll quickly go to the site. When we were doing the rapid reviews one, I said, so what do you mean by rapid reviews? And round the table went silent. Oh, well, some of them are not rapid, right? And what we ended up doing was getting a definition of what we all meant by rapid reviews. Because if we hadn't done that and asked that basic question, by the time we got to the end of it, we would probably be disagreeing with the research. So we developed the Sense of Elsewhere book that's a roadmap. We're working on that now. If you're interested, speak to me later. Participants in a workshop said that involvement helps make sense, grounds the research reality, provides those perspectives, and builds and maintains trust in research. And that latter one, even more important today than ever before. I've already said those things. So come to being, what he actually said was, Wexford had a Woolworths, a bookshop, and a long street. And if you think of what's happened to Woolworths, and the fact that we now use Amazon, so research is changing, so it's best to get in now. In terms of the bookshop, we've all got stuff on our phones and access to material. And the long street, I hope you won't be unlikely to meet somebody. I hope you meet people you do know. So I may have lost my speech, but in many respects, we've found our voice. But the last question, how do we help the others whose voices aren't heard, don't know they could be in this room, and if they did come in, how would they speak? I'm done.
Thank you so much, Derek. I've heard Derek so many times, and every time I learn something new and I hear some other phrase or words of wisdom that stick with me and that I spend quoting for the next 6 months, year, Derek. So we have our roving mics in the audience. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Derek at this point? And equally, I would encourage those who tuned in online, please use the chat to answer any questions, and we'll go over to Martha to see if we have any. So anyone here like to ask Derek a question? And maybe I'll kick, oh, hang on, we have one here. Excellent, thanks, Ger.
The question of how would you support people who aren't in this room if they came in is really important to me. And it's important because as a PPI contributor, you are in some ways at the mercy of the researcher's invitation to get involved. And when you get involved, you're there very oftentimes in the role of an influencer, a very powerful influencer, but still an influencer. You're not an integral part of the research process yet. I think we'll get there, but we're not there yet as PPI contributors. But if we looked at PPI contributors' involvement as part of the human rights framework, how would that change things? Would that move us closer to being an integral part that was accepted? I mean, health is accepted as a basic human right, so by extension, I think PPI contribution and involvement should also be accepted as that. I think that would change the face of it, but I'd like to know what you think.
I agree, Ger. I think I spend more of my time reading books and materials about emancipation, about women's votes, just about trespass, right, in the UK, the mass trespass movement. The Invisible Woman is another book I've recently come across, because I think this is about democratizing research. Fundamentally, you have to ask a question: whose research is this? It doesn't belong to scientists. It doesn't belong to the medical community. It belongs to all of us. It's paid for by donation or taxation. And I think what we have to be asking for is, if we don't see our faces in amongst those groups and driving things, then it's not truly being inclusive. So I think it's up to people like me to move on and let go, let others in. I've tried to always be a teacher, try and open the door to others. But I think the human rights angle of saying, actually, this is about our health, and that is a human right. So I think we need to look more at that and read more in those than necessarily PPI articles. Did I just say that out loud? Maybe I shouldn't have done. Anyway.
Excellent, thanks, Derek. Have we any other question from the audience here?
I'd just like to say thank you,
sorry,
sir.
I should have probably said, just briefly give your name and as you're speaking, sorry.
Sorry, Carmen Gagan, and I'm PPI advocate, and I just want to say I'm always inspired by Derek, and I think your words today were lost my speech but found my voice. So important, and thank you for all your work.
Excellent, and I think our online attendees are quiet as of yet, Martha, so again we encourage you to interact with us if you have some questions. So I'm delighted to hand back over to Cameron.